20 forgotten crops are about to surface from the depths of garden history, each one carrying a secret that modern supermarkets tried to bury. And if you understand why they were almost erased, you will never look at a seed catalog the same way again. Some of these plants fed entire armies, others were currency during famine, and a few simply refused to die even after the world declared them obsolete. In a time when a single disease can wipe out a global supply of bananas or lettuce, the rugged genetics locked inside these antique varieties represent a vault of survival intelligence we desperately need right now. Consider the rolling hills of Lancaster County, where time moves at the pace of a horse-drawn plow and innovation is measured by how many winters a jar of preserves can endure. Here, the Amish community cultivated a tomato that defies the watery pale imitations found under fluorescent grocery lights. This was not a tomato for slicing into thin, translucent coins that dissolve on bread. It was a tomato engineered by necessity and selection for pure, unadulterated density. Its internal structure is a maze of thick walls and minimal gel, a flesh so substantial that when you cut it open, you are greeted by a solid landscape of red rather than a puddle of seeds. Picture the scene. A cast iron stove radiates heat against the chill of an October evening. Baskets of these heavy fruits are lowered into copper kettles, simmering down for hours into a concentrate so rich it stains wooden spoons for a generation. That thick, savory paste would line the cellar shelves in glass sentinels, each one a guarantee against the barren months ahead. This was not merely horticulture. This was a covenant between the family and the land. The very act of saving these seeds, of rejecting the seductive lure of the high-yield but tasteless hybrid, was a quiet act of rebellion. It is the reason this specific variety breathes today. It is a monument to a way of life that measures wealth not in dollars per acre, but in the depth of flavor locked within a jar. But if that tomato offered the quiet solace of a warm hearth, another crop promised a far more volatile kind of magic. It is a pepper that wears a coat of many colors, as if nature decided to graffiti the garden with stripes of cream, emerald, and blood orange. This is not a simple decoration. In the bustling oyster houses and crab shacks of the 19th century Chesapeake Bay, this chili was the ghost in the machine, the uncredited architect of a regional flavor profile. It thrived in the shadows of formal agriculture, growing in the hidden plots and alleyway gardens of African-American communities. It was a treasure transmitted through whispered recipes and the memory of hands chopping, never through the sterile prose of a commercial grower's pamphlet. Its power lay in its chameleon nature. When pale and young, it lent a grassy, sharp note to a pot of simmering seafood. When ripened to a deep, angry crimson, it carried the fire of a forge. The rise of the mechanized food system had no patience for such a finicky masterpiece. It was too unusual. Unusual, too difficult to stack neatly in a crate, and so it receded like a tide until it was nearly a ghost itself. That it exists now in our gardens is a testament to the stubbornness of flavor and the keepers of cultural flame who refuse to let the last ember die out. It is more than a vegetable. It is a living exhibit of resilience painted in hues of green and red. From a pepper that hid in the low places, we turn our gaze upward to a titan that dominated the skyline of the homestead. Imagine walking a dirt path in 1800 and then finding yourself eye level with the bloom the diameter of a cart's wheel. This was the sentinel of the prairie garden, a sunflower of such colossal stature that it served as a beacon for pollinators and a warehouse of calories for the family. Its massive gray-striped seeds were not just bird feed, they were a strategic asset. Roasted and ground, they extended the coffee ration when the real bean cost a fortune. Pressed for oil or boiled into a gritty porridge, they offered a dense matrix of fuel for bodies working from sunrise to sunset. Even its towering skeleton had a second life. Those thick, woody stalks were often woven together to form a windbreak for tender cucumbers or a living trellis for climbing legumes. Beneath that canopy, a cooler, more forgiving microclimate allowed other crops to cheat the heat of high summer. While modern agriculture has shrunk the sunflower into a compact, single-stem commodity designed for combine efficiency, this ancient giant remains a reminder that a single plant can be an entire ecosystem. It was a pantry, a shade tree, and a fortress wall, all rising from a single seed the size of a fingernail. And while that golden giant scanned the horizon, another survivor was wending its way through the shadows at its feet. It moves with a serpentine grace, its pods adorned with the mottled purple streaks of a viper's skin. This bean is not for the faint of heart or the tidy gardener. It is for the survivor. In the lean red clay soils of the rural South, where the sun could bake the earth into pottery shards and the rain sometimes forgot to visit, this climber was often the only thing standing between a family and an empty larder. It scales with an almost desperate ambition, latching onto corn stalks, fence posts, or anything vertical that offers escape from the blistering ground. And unlike the delicate bush varieties that produce a single flush and then succumb to the heat, this serpentine vine keeps throwing out blossoms and pods long after the first frost has withered lesser plants. Its resilience is encoded in its genes. Industrial farming, with its need for uniform maturity and machine harvest, had no use for a bean that required a ladder and a keen eye. But in the hands of those who value a continuous harvest over a quick one, it endures. It coils and climbs still, a verdant snake that carries the memory of drought and defiance. Beneath those climbing vines, a different kind of patience was at work. Here lies a vegetable that appears almost awkward, a stretched-out gourd that looks like a vegetable that forgot to stop growing. Its skin is a muted, dusty orange, offering no hint of the golden treasure hidden inside. In the root cellars of old New England, this was the quiet guardian of winter. While the pretty, round pie pumpkins would soften and rot by Christmas, this elongated variety would sit in the cool darkness, its flesh slowly converting starches into sugars. It was a living alchemy of flavor. As the snow piled up against the door and the wind howled outside, a cook could descend into the cellar and retrieve a piece of autumn that was actually sweeter now than the day it was picked. Baked into a piney, it offered a dense, velvety custard that was less about water and more about the essence of the earth. Its ability to wait, to hold its sweetness in reserve until the moment of deepest need, made it an indispensable ally in the fight against winter hunger. It is a crop that teaches us the value of deferred gratification. Its survival is owed to those who understood that true beauty in a vegetable is not just about the symmetry of its shape, but the length of its endurance. Shifting from the vine to the soil, we encounter a root that turns a humble garden row into a veritable gold mine. In the humid fields of the deep South, this sweet potato variety changed the calculus of subsistence. It is a crop defined by a single staggering statistic. A single slip in the ground can yield 10 pounds of edible treasure. That is not just a harvest, that is a windfall. The tubers themselves are dense with a sunset-colored flesh, packed with sweetness and the kind of complex carbohydrates that power a body through a day of hard labor. But the genius of this plant extends beyond the soil line. When other greens have bolted or been devoured by pests, the tips of these sprawling vines offer a tender, nutritious leaf that can be stir-fried or stewed. In an era of subsistence, this meant the plant gave twice. It was a built-in redundancy, a safety net woven from foliage and starch. In years when the rain stopped and the corn withered, these roots held firm in the warm earth, waiting to be unearthed. They represented a form of agrarian insurance that no bank could provide. And while the agricultural landscape has shifted toward more uniform, skin-sensitive varieties, this Louisiana-bred marvel remains the gold standard for those who understand that true abundance comes from the ground, not from a can. Yet as we dig deeper into the heritage of hardy plants, we find one that offered tenderness in the face of frost. Its leaves are soft, rounded, and unassuming, almost like velvet spoons resting on the dirt. Grown in the meticulously planned gardens of a founding father, this lettuce was prized not for its ability to travel 1,000 miles in a refrigerated truck, but for its ability to simply taste like something real. In an age before the cold chain, flavor was the only currency that mattered. Early American households treated this green not just as a fleeting summer salad, but as a preserve. They would pack the leaves into stoneware crocks, submerging them in brine to create a tangy, wilted salad that could be spooned out alongside salted pork and hardtack in the depths of January. It was the taste of chlorophyll held in suspended animation. Its very existence is a rebuke to the modern notion that a leaf must be as crisp as plastic and as durable as cardboard to be valuable. It is a soft, ephemeral whisper from a time when gardens were planted for the people who lived next to them, not for the supply chain manager in a distant warehouse. From the softness of the leaf to the boldness of the stalk, we travel to the windswept highlands where the cold is a constant companion. Here, a different kind of vegetable stands firm, its broad leaves defying the frost that would turn an onion to slime. This leek is a monument to girth and reliability. In the crofts and cottage gardens of the Northern Isles, a pot of soup was often defined by the thickness of the leek at its bottom. This variety, with its swollen stem and robust stature, provided a savory backbone to broths that staved off the damp chill of the climate. It was the vegetable equivalent of a wool sweater. Its ability to stand in the frozen ground, to be harvested with a thud of a spade even when the world was encased in ice, gave it an almost mythical status among winter gardeners. It was the bridge between the last root vegetable and the first spring pea. Its flavor is not sharp and aggressive like its allium cousins, but mellow and rich, melting into the background of a stew to create a foundation of comfort. It is a crop for the practical dreamer, the one who knows that beauty is found in the steaming bowl on a dark February night. Now imagine a vegetable that looks like it crash-landed from a distant moon. A swollen, bulbous stem that seems to have absorbed all the energy of the plant into one bizarre, overgrown knob. This German heirloom is a conversation piece that also happens to be a culinary heavyweight. At its peak, it can be as large as a bowling ball, yet it harbors no woody, fibrous toughness. Slice into it, and the interior is a crisp, watery crunch, reminiscent of a mild broccoli stem, but sweeter. It can be eaten out of hand like an apple, or roasted until the edges caramelize into a sticky golden brown. Its secret weapon was always the cellar. In a cold, dark storage room, these odd spheres would keep for months, their thick skins locking in the freshness of the summer harvest. When the snow drifted high, a farmer could pull one of these from the shelf and feed a family for days. It is a testament to the fact that nature does not always package her best gifts in familiar boxes. Sometimes the most dependable ally looks like a prop from a fantasy novel, yet it carries the weight of centuries of European food securities on its strange, purple-tinged shoulders. If the previous crop relied on its strange shape, this next one relies on sheer, unapologetic bulk. In the world of chilies, size and heat often have an inverse relationship, but this variety defies that logic by simply providing more pepper. These are not the dainty, thumb-sized pods that get lost in a stir-fry. These are weapons-grade produce, stretching longer than a dollar bill and thick enough to slice into hearty rings. The weight of them is almost comical, pulling the plant's branches down toward the earth in a posture of exhaustion. For the home cook, this means efficiency. One pepper yields a pile of diced flesh for salsa, a perfect boat for a stuffing of cheese and sausage, or a substantial canvas for the smoker. For the farmer, it meant yield. A single row of these giants could fill a bushel basket faster than you could say, harvest. In a culture where the preservation of food was paramount, these meaty walls held up far better to canning and drying than their flimsier cousins. They retain their body, their heft, and their vibrant color long after the jar has been sealed. It is a chili built for the scale of a real kitchen, not just for a garnish on a plate. And then we come to the squash that built New England. This is not a flashy, turban-shaped heirloom meant for the centerpiece. This is a working-class squash, a reliable orange block of nutrition that kept families alive through the howling nor'easters of the 19th century. Its skin is tough and its shape is unremarkable, but the secret is inside. The flesh is dense and dry, not watery and stringy. When roasted, it transforms into a fluffy, golden pile of sweetness that requires little more than a pat of butter and a sprinkle of salt to become a meal. It was the engine of the colonial kitchen, filling pies with a richness that pumpkin could only aspire to, and thickening stews into rib-sticking porridges. Its ability to climb a fence or sprawl over a rocky ledge made it a perfect fit for the cramped, resource-scarce farms of the era. Most importantly, it was a keeper. With a hard shell that sealed out rot and decay, it would sit patiently in the barn or cellar, a silent promise that no matter how hard the winter bit, There would be something warm and orange to eat come February. From the practical to the preposterous, we now turn to a fruit that redefines the word big. In the world of competitive growing and county fairs, there is a name that looms larger than the rest, a genetic lineage of pumpkin that seems to have tapped into some forbidden vein of growth hormone. This is the leviathan of the vine. Under the right conditions, with the right soil biology and a whole lot of water, these monsters swell at a rate that is almost audible, packing on dozens of pounds in a single day. They grow not just for food, though their pale flesh can indeed fill 1,000 pies. They grow for glory. The culture surrounding these giants is a blend of science, superstition, and sheer luck. Farmers pamper them with compost teas and shading tents, guarding them against marauding insects like dragons guarding a hoard of gold. The eventual weigh-off is a spectacle of hydraulics and forklifts. Yet, behind the carnival atmosphere lies a biological marvel. It is a demonstration of what a single seed can achieve when given the perfect storm of genetics and care. It is a pumpkin that has left the realm of the vegetable and entered the realm of pure, unadulterated spectacle. But while the pumpkin lays upon the earth like a beached whale, another southern giant reaches for the clouds on slender, green stalks. It is a plant of elegant architecture and absurdly long fruit. In the warm, humid dawn of a Georgia morning, the dew clings to pods that curve like the horn of an ancient aurochs. This okra is the secret weapon of the gumbo pot. Unlike the common varieties that turn to wood if you glance away for a day, this heirloom maintains a remarkable tenderness, even at lengths that would seem inedible. This trait was a game changer for the family cook. It meant less frantic, daily scrambling to beat the heat. A pod missed on Monday could still be picked and eaten with pleasure on Thursday. It offered a window of grace. In the simmering pot, it releases a silky, thickening texture that defines the soul of Creole and low-country cooking. It is a plant that asks for nothing more than sun and a steak, and in return, it provides a vertical column of green abundance that stretches far above the gardener's head. Sharing that same southern sun, but hugging the ground in a sprawl of green and silver stripes, is a watermelon with a name that speaks to the wild. The stripes are a warning, but not a venom. They are a warning to the appetite. Prepare for a flood of sweetness. In the heat of a pre-air conditioning summer, this melon was a communal event. It wasn't a single-serving fruit. It was a fruit for a reunion, a church picnic, or a crowd of thirsty field hands. Its rind was tough, built for the long haul, allowing it to survive the bumpy wagon ride to market or weeks of storage in the shade of a porch. That staying power was its economic and nutritional superpower. When the peaches were a distant memory and the berries were long gone, this melon still held the cool, crisp taste of deep summer inside its striped shell. To split one open is to release a fragrance that is the very essence of July, a reminder that sweetness can be cultivated from the most unforgiving clay. Beneath the soil, away from the spectacle of giant fruits and towering stalks, a more humble workhorse continues to do its job. It is a turnip, but not the bitter, woody bulb of nursery rhyme infamy. This one wears a crown of royal purple above the dirt line, fading to a clean, white globe below. It is the infantryman of the winter garden. When the first hard freeze turns the squash vines to blackened spaghetti, this turnip stands firm. Its root is sweet and crisp, perfect for a raw snack or a slow braise with a piece of smoked meat. And then there are the greens. Too often discarded, these leaves are a powerhouse of cold weather nutrition, transforming into a savory, pot-liker stew that warms you from the bone out. During times of extreme scarcity, entire civilizations have leaned on the humble turnip to bridge the gap between autumn's end and spring's first hope. It is the crop of the survivor, unglamorous and indispensable. In stark contrast to the subtle turnip, we encounter a root that seems to have ambitions of being a tree stump. It emerges from the soil a deep, visceral crimson, a beet that looks like it was designed to feed not just a family, but a barn full of livestock. This was the dual-purpose champion of the homestead economy. A single root, as heavy as a toddler, could be carved up for the dinner table, roasted until its sugars caramelized into something resembling earthy candy. But its primary value was often in the manger. During the long, dark months when pasture grass was a distant memory, These massive mangles were the fuel that kept the draft horses pulling and the milk cows producing. They represented a strategic reserve of moisture and energy. The fact that their broad, glossy leaves could also be stripped and cooked as a green was merely a bonus. It was a crop that spoke the language of pragmatic abundance. No waste, no fuss, just a massive red tuber that ensured the whole farm survived until the thaw. Moving from the dense weight of the root to the airy volume of the fruit, we find a pepper shaped like a floppy red ear. It hangs on the plant with a casual, almost comical gravity, its walls thick and wrinkled. This is not a pepper you slice into strips. This is a pepper you stuff. In the cuisines of the Mediterranean and Eastern Europe, this variety is the holy grail of the harvest. Its broad shoulders and flat bottom allow it to sit upright in a baking dish like a soldier at attention. Stuffed with a mixture of rice, herbs, and ground meat, then simmered in a tangy tomato broth. It becomes a self-contained meal. Its flesh is sweet and substantial, lacking the bitter, thin bite of lesser bell peppers. When roasted over an open flame, the skin blisters and slips away, revealing a layer of savory, smoky velvet beneath. It is a pepper that commands respect in the kitchen, not through heat, but through sheer generous presence. From a pepper of presence, we shift to a tomato of sheer overwhelming mass. Its name evokes a biblical scale, and the plant does not disappoint. This is a tomato for a single slice sandwich. A single solitary slab of this red behemoth is enough to drape over the edges of a piece of sourdough, covering it entirely. But while many giant tomatoes sacrifice flavor for freak show size, this one manages to maintain a deep, resonant acidity balanced by a sweetness that only comes from hours of direct sun. It is the flavor of a perfect summer afternoon, condensed into a fruit that feels heavy in the palm of your hand. For the gardener, this variety is a testament to vigor. The vines are thick as ropes, capable of supporting the tremendous payload without snapping. It is a crop that invites you to believe in abundance, to believe that the world can still produce things that are shockingly, unapologetically large and delicious at the same time. Finally, we come to two aromatics that fill the air with the perfume of memory. The first is an herb with leaves so broad they could be used as wrappers. This basil does not require a delicate chiffonade of a dozen sprigs. One leaf, torn and crushed between the fingers, releases a cloud of clove and anise that fills the entire kitchen. It is the scent of Mediterranean hillsides and Sunday sauce simmering for hours. For those who preserve, this variety is a windfall. A single harvest yields enough leaves to fill jars of pesto that will glow green in the freezer all winter long. It is the scent of summer, bottled and saved. And then there is the garlic that is not a garlic. It is a gentle giant, a bulb the size of a fist that peels apart into cloves as large as a thumb. Its flavor is a whisper compared to the shout of common garlic. Roasted whole, it transforms into a sweet, nutty paste that is more akin to a savory custard than a condiment. It is the allium for those who want the comfort without the confrontation, a subtle background note that elevates everything it touches without dominating the conversation. In the garden, it stands tall and statuesque, a handsome plant that asks for little and gives back a harvest of enormous, mild generosity. These plants are not just seeds, they are archives. They are the living, breathing, photosynthesizing evidence that our ancestors knew things we have chosen to forget in the race for shelf stability and shipping durability. They carry within their cells the memory of droughts endured, of winters survived, and of families fed. In a world of agricultural monotony, where vast swaths of land are planted with a single genetic strain, these heirlooms represent a vault of resilience and flavor. They are the backup plan we almost threw away. Which of these quiet giants surprised you the most? Is there a seed story in your own family history that has been passed down alongside the china and the silver? I want to read about it in the comments below. And if this journey through the forgotten rows of the garden sparks something in you, please take a second to like this video so more people can find these stories. Subscribe to my channel because we are just getting started unearthing the secrets that the industrial food system wants to stay buried. Until next time, keep the soil alive and the stories growing.